So this is either going to be one of my smartest blind buys ever or a very expensive mistake. If it's bad, you're going to witness a live emotional event.
The money, Skylar. Where is the rest?
I gave it to Ted.
Today we're going to be reviewing something brand new. This, I don't even know what it smells like yet. This is Charon's Vail by Argos. I'm going to let you know what the notes are. I'm going to let you know how it smells on my skin. And at the end, I'm going to give you my 2 cents. So let's get on the ferry and get going. Hey there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sean and this is my 2 cents. If you're a new viewer, then welcome, and if you're a return viewer, then welcome back. Before we get started, I do want to say if you are a fan of fast-paced fragrance reviews and you're not already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. The algorithm really likes it when you do that, and so do I. Also, that said, if you're not following me on TikTok and Instagram, I'm starting to build those up, but if you'd like to subscribe, I would really appreciate it. This is the handle over there. It's my 2 cents official. Please go over there, click follow, click subscribe, whatever it is. I would really appreciate it. So today what we're doing is a blind unboxing from the House of Argos. This fragrance here is called Charon's Vail. I've never smelled it. I don't know anything about it. All I've done is seen the bottle, read the concept online, and quite frankly, this box was enough to sell me on it. So Argos is a house that builds their fragrances out of mythology, art, and narrative. And this is right up my alley because I was an art history major in college. So I look at a lot of their bottles and I think, oh yes, I recognize that. I remember that. Specifically this one. This particular fragrance is called Charon's Vail, and it was inspired by Charon, who in Greek mythology was the ferry boatman who would ferry the souls of the dead across the river Styx. So as it was said, when the dead were buried, they were buried with a series of coins called the obol. It would either be somewhere in their mouth, particularly under their tongue, or on their eyes. Once they arrived into the underworld and were greeted by Charon, they would give him the coins that would pay their toll to go across the river Styx. But if they didn't have that toll to pay Charon, they were damned to walk the shores of the Styx for 100 years. So I want to be clear that Charon was not meant to represent the god of death. He was literally the crossing, the transition, that moment in between worlds, and quite frankly, I hope this smells exactly like that. So I'm going to go ahead and open the box. We're going to look at the presentation. I understand that Argos does presentation very well. Let's see what it's all about. Yeah, that's some really good presentation. So on the inside of the box, it talks a little bit about the artist who inspired the painting on the cover of the box. It tells a little bit about Charon, and it tells a little bit about the fragrance and the notes that you'll find inside. All right, Argos, you really don't play when it comes to visual storytelling. The bottle's great, the box was great, the outer packaging was great. In fact, it was that outer packaging that made me blind buy this fragrance in the first place. So the bottle here is very weighty, the top is very heavy. I can already smell the fragrance out of the bottle, not having sprayed it yet. So Argos definitely spares no expense on their packaging or their presentation. But let's see if the fragrance holds up to that. I'm going to go through the notes before I actually put it on my skin. In the top notes, the first note that you get is rose. In the middle, you've got oud, sandalwood, patchouli, and atlas cedar. And in the base, you've got labdanum and saffron. So before smelling this fragrance, I do want to say, a lot of different houses have done that oud-rose combination. Particularly Montal, they've mixed oud with rose with something else 86 different ways. But this combination is something that you find frequently. But the thing that stuck out to me about this was the saffron note. I'm not a huge fan of saffron by itself, but I think with this combination, the rose, the oud, and the saffron might make something unique. I'm going to go ahead and spray it on my skin. So right off the bat, you get immediately that rose note that I mentioned was in the top. This doesn't smell like a very floral rose. This smells like a warm, very heavy, very, very textured rose. And then behind that, I'm picking up very woody notes. I've got the patchouli. This is not a cloying patchouli. This isn't a very hippie smelling patchouli. The patchouli exists here, it feels like, for backbone, for strength, to support the fragrance. I'm also getting woody notes. I'm getting the oud starting to come through. The oud doesn't smell very animalic. This smells like a deep, very shadowed oud that's here to support the rose. Yeah, like I said, this is a very dark fragrance. This is mirroring the packaging very, very well. The oud and the rose here are not very lifted. They're not very warm. They're dark and shadowed. And in the base, I can pick up the labdanum. I can pick up a hint of the saffron. It's warm, it's sort of resinous, it's glowing, but it's still shadowy and controlled at the same time. So as I said, this is an extrait de parfum. This is a very strong, very authoritative, very, very present fragrance. The rose here is dark, it's elegant, but it's supported by the other notes brilliantly. The saffron here adds the slightest bit of warmth, the slightest bit of glow, but the rose is still very dark. The oud keeps it in the shadows. So this is a fragrance that's going to announce your presence, but it's going to do it in a way that's not arrogant at all. It's dark, it's elegant, it's beautiful, and it smells very intentional. The patchouli here adds earth and gravity to this. It still smells dark. It smells like polished wood. It smells like smoke. It smells like dark fabric. It's really giving me the whole vibe that the image on the front of the box is giving me. And the dry down is ambery, it's resinous, it's warm, it's glowing, it's never sweet, it's never playful, it's comforting and controlled at the same time. Trying to think of what kind of a rose this reminds me of. So the rose here is a very dark, deliberate, very heavy rose. Don't think of something like dew on rose petals or something like you might smell in Elledaria by Creed. This rose reminds me of the rose in Portrait of a Lady. Now, I want to be clear that this fragrance doesn't remind me of that one, but the rose is quite similar. And I also want to stress that the oud here just provides shadow. It provides support for the rose. There's nothing chaotic about it. It's not animalic. It's not fecal. It doesn't smell dirty, but you definitely recognize its presence in the fragrance. Because this fragrance is so deep and so dark, I would say this is a great evening fragrance. This is a good fragrance for cold weather. It's currently January in New York City. I haven't had an opportunity to wear this yet. I will experiment with it in cold weather, in warm weather, but this is definitely a fantastic fragrance if you want to make an entrance. This fragrance is sort of familiar, yet at the same time, it's different. I think what the other fragrances that have that oud rose combination are lacking is that warm glow of the saffron. I think the saffron is really setting this apart, and it's so subtle. You don't even recognize that it's there. You're not going to sit there and say, that's a saffron fragrance, but it's doing something to your mind which is giving it a little bit of warmth, a little bit of glow, so that this doesn't stay an overtly dark fragrance. But I do feel like this fragrance definitely mirrors what they're trying to convey through the packaging and also through the myth of Charon. All right, it's time for me to give you my 2 cents on Charon's Vail by Argos. So what I think people are really going to like about this fragrance is that at its core, this is an oud rose fragrance. People love that combination. It has been done so many times, some better than others, but I think Argos has taken a different take on it with that saffron, and it's made it very successful. This fragrance feels artistic, but at the same time intentional, and it really feels to match the myth and the presentation. I also like what Argos is doing over at their house, and I would definitely like to smell some of their other fragrances. This doesn't just feel like they slapped Charon's picture and Charon's Vail on a box and put this fragrance inside of it. This feels very deliberate. It feels that the notes were picked out deliberately, and it almost feels like it takes you on a journey, just like Charon would have taken you on the journey across the river Styx. As a side note, if you are familiar with this house and you know there are other fragrances, definitely leave me a comment and let me know what other ones I should try. I know people are obsessed with Triumph of Bacchus. I'm unfamiliar with it, but I would like to get my nose on some of their other fragrances. On the other hand, if you're not a fan of very heavy fragrances that are going to announce your presence, this is definitely not a blind buy safe fragrance for you. This is a very strong fragrance. I know oud can sometimes be polarizing, but this is not a very dirty oud. This is not a fecal oud. This is not an objectionable oud. This is an oud that's only there to shadowy mirror that rose. I don't know how else to explain it. One of the other things I want to point out is that this fragrance for me leans masculine. I know that rose is sitting there prominently at the top, and this is at its core a rose oud fragrance, but I do want to stress that this for me does lean more masculine because it's so heavy, because it's not very light, because it doesn't really smell like a floral rose. That said, I do think that men wrongly will shift away from a fragrance that is rose for men simply because they think it's going to smell really floral. It's the same thing that Portrait of a Lady does. For me, Portrait of a Lady, even though it's called Portrait of a Lady, I think it's a very heavy rose. I think it's a very masculine rose, and it would suit masculine tastes very well. And it's the same thing for me with Charon's Vail by Argos. So Charon's Vail by Argos is going to create presence, and it also understands that darkness does not have to be chaotic. Darkness is calm, it's measured, it's composed. This fragrance tells a real story about transition. It tells about what was, what is, and what's next. And the fragrance actually takes you on the same journey. 3 deliberate notes, the rose, the oud, and the saffron, can all be sensed at different moments in the wear. And for me, when a fragrance can communicate that without speaking, that's not just perfumery, that's art. And I think that's exactly what Argos is going for. That was my 2 cents on Charon's Vail by Argos. If you're familiar with this fragrance, definitely leave me a comment. As I said, if you know the house and you know the other fragrances in the house, leave me a comment. Let me know what I should smell. You know my fragrance profile by now and my tastes. Let me know what you think I'll like. I will respond to the comments. I've been responding to all of them, even the nasty ones. If you liked this video or if you like this fragrance, definitely give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, also give me a thumbs up. If you're curious about this fragrance or you want to know more about it, definitely leave me a comment. I will respond. I'll answer all questions. Once again, this was Charon's Vail by Argos. My name is Sean. That was my 2 cents. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you next episode. Goodbye, everyone.